Tyler, you are on the hot seat today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, buddy.
I'll take it.
All
I
right,
can
let's
deal
go.
with it.
I know you can. I feel sometimes I wish we could bottle up our text conversation and just create I wonder if AI could create a podcast episode with our text.
They
That would be
probably
bad.
could. And
That
they're
would be
all legit. I feel like there's certain text streams that I wouldn't want them to do that with, but I feel like ours are all relatively legit.
Yeah, there's definitely text streams, and primarily my wife's, because it'd be me, all the things I shouldn't say all the things I do wrong, but it would just be this ridiculous text stream of things like that I screw up.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you emptied the cat litter and you left the cat shit in the hallway all night. But yeah, no, today we're gonna talk about your stuff. I don't remember what we started with.
We started with your spec.
Oh, my spec, yes. We talk about my spec, and we talk about craftsmanship, and I think we made a lot of good progress on an issue that Tyler is working on a project, and it was cool to talk it out on the podcast instead of just through text, because I think that I got a different perspective and hopefully shared a different perspective on it.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. Like I said, I've been venting a lot of this to you over the past few weeks, and it seems every day that there is a new headache. And at the end of the day, I've been trying to protect everyone in this situation while trying to protect myself, and I realized that this is where I work. My name is on this job, and at the end of the day, I need to ensure that everyone understands the capacity that I have to remediate issues that I'm are coming across my plate, and that there's concerns that I have, and I'm not necessarily throwing somebody on their bus by voicing those concerns, but I'm the professional. I was brought on and hired for a certain reason, and I think that things should be done a certain way, and I need to voice those concerns rather than just hiding things under the rug. So that's on my to-do list. But yeah, I appreciate you hopping on and talking, and I hope you guys and girls enjoy this podcast and get down to it on the hot seat.
Link is also in the bio below. And this podcast is also brought to you by Andersen. Nobody takes energy efficiency more seriously than Andersen. That's why they offer multiple high-performance glass that make it possible to get Andersen windows and patio doors that are Energy Star certified, no matter where you live in the country. Check out their triple pane options to keep more heat in and cold air out. And for more information, visit andersenwindows.com or the link in the description of this episode.
I got nothing to say. You did a good job.
This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. Life is hard, but running your construction business doesn't have to be.
Life is hard.
Life is hard, man.
With Buildertrend's to-do features, with Buildertrend's to-dos feature, you can create and assign tasks for your team, subs, and even your clients. Everyone knows what to do and when to do it.
Set automatic reminders and link tasks to schedule items to guarantee that nothing slips through the cracks. You can also template your to-dos so punch list items get copied from job to job without having to manually enter them every time.
Cut down on all the back and forth when you sign up for Buildertrend's construction management software today and start using to-dos. Schedule a free demo by going to buildertrend.com/MC demo.
What's up? I fucking whacked my elbow. I'm starting the podcast like this. I whacked my elbow.
On what?
On a door jamb, and it's just sore now. You know that feeling, like when you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sucks.
How'd you do that?
I have no idea.
Is it your funny bone? Your humerus?
I don't know if it's my funny bone, but I don't know. I went in the bathroom. I did like some spin move around to shut the light off, and I'm an idiot. I slammed in the door jamb.
I smoked a tree this weekend riding with my hand.
Oh, I saw it. Well, and you posted your picture of your hand.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was bad, but in that photo, it didn't look bad.
No, you can't tell compared to
I figured
the
as
other
much.
one.
I was like, he wouldn't be posting this if he got this little like rub rash on his knuckle.
No, I completely bruised my two fingers, and then the top of my hand is fully swollen to the fact that you can't see any of the definition in my other hand. but I also did smack my knuckles pretty good.
Mm.
Um, but that's very it's crazy. I heard it a year ago, and I was like, it just never really got better. I guess I didn't give it a chance to get better, but then it finally started feeling better. And then this weekend, I
Of
like
course.
re-injured it, and I'm like, ah. So I finally ordered like a legit brace to ride with, because I don't know why it was $200, and I was just for a year would tape it every time I rode, and then I
Mm.
was like, why did I not order this a
Mm.
year ago?
It,
So
it's
that's
it's
coming on Wednesday.
it's funny you say like it hurt forever and then it finally started feeling better. I had this. This is gonna make me sound crazy. Most things do. Um, but I have this thought every once in a while when, like today, I've had this weird headache and it's like in my neck and like my head. And
Yeah.
I'm not a big Advil kind of guy or medicine guy. And I took Advil today because I'm like, I just need to like relieve some pressure. But every time I have pain that just doesn't go away, I always think to myself, I'm like, am I ever not in pain?
Yeah.
Like, do I ever like, could I ever sit here and then be like, wow, none of my body hurts? And I don't believe that that ever exists.
Probably not. I think that there's always some sort of issue,
So like there, and
especially as you
not,
get older.
but not even. No, I've had this thought since I was a kid, like forever. Not that I'm in like pain, but like, is there ever just a sense of just like complete, like, man, I just feel like there's nothing sore. I don't have a headache. Like everything is just like perfectly in place.
Maybe if you do drugs or die.
It probably sounds like I am on drugs talking about this.
Um, I don't know. I I was thinking about that today, where it's like I'm always trying to work through some sort of pain or injury, and you just get used to it. It's like things always hurt. Um, some days they hurt, some other days they don't hurt. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to get better. I think as you get older, it's only going to get worse.
Mm,
I don't
yeah,
think
I
that
mean,
stress helps. A lot of times
no,
I get these stress headaches, where it feels, it's not really a headache, it's more of a neck ache, and there's
yeah,
like a knot in my neck, and it also somewhat hurts my jaw, and I've gotten them since I was
you're you're
probably
you're
in
literally
college.
explaining how I feel right now.
Yeah, I
I was
like
out in the shop, like stretching my
yeah,
jaw, and I'm
yeah,
like, "What
that
am I doing?"
it's weird, but, like, I thought I had, like, some sort of issue years ago, and went and got, like, screening to make sure I didn't have some sort of weird, like, neck or jaw or
Mhm.
mouth cancer or something, and they're like, "Nah, everything's fine." And I realized it was in college that, like, the only time it wouldn't hurt was when I was drinking, and I'm like, "Okay, so it's probably stress that,
Yeah.
like, when you're drinking is taking the stress off, and
Mhm.
you're I was never like a big drug user or anything, so I couldn't say if I felt it when I was doing drugs.
Mhm.
But it was like you'd have like a beer or two and it would go away. It would like it was just that edge all
Yep.
day long that would create this like knot in my neck, and I still get it to this day, and I know exactly what it is. But it's definitely stress induced.
I I had that green C10, the 68 C10 a
Yeah.
couple years ago, and I it was a really stressful time, um, in my business, and I remember I had that neck pain, head pain, jaw pain for months, and I remember buying that C10, and I got it running, and I went for that first ride, and I got home, and Meg was like, "How was it?" I'm like, "Dude, my neck pain's gone." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "My like, you know that neck pain I've had for months? It's gone." She goes, "You think the truck did that?" I'm like, "I think I was so like it was like this euphoric moment of me
Yeah.
just not caring about anything except for the fact that I'm driving this old truck and having fun with it that allowed me to like drop my shoulders and just calm down for a second."
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, that's definitely what it is right now. I feel like my stress level is extremely high. We talked about it in the podcast a couple weeks ago. And by the way, everyone that reached out, thank you. I appreciate that. And ultimately, like Tyler and I talked, and we're gonna try to do more of these one-on-one Tyler and Nick episodes because a ton of you guys reached out, and it was a mix of like, "Hey, man, I'm going through that," or "Hey, I've been through that," or "Hey, that really helped me." And and then a fair share of people that reached out and were like, "Hey, you're okay, right?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes, I am okay. I am I believe designed to be resilient, and I am in control of the situation at hand. Uh, yes, I'm stressed. Yes, there's things that are happening very quickly, and I'm adapting. And I appreciate the stage to be transparent about that and share that, and glad that some of you guys find it helpful. Um,
Yeah,
but
you had
yeah,
asked me, you were like, "Did you get a ton of responses from that?" I was like, "I don't really think it was about me, but maybe I also don't really check my DMs that much." So,
I literally like people were texting me. I mean, I promote my phone number out there, but
yeah,
I got a few texts where like, "Hey, dot dot dot, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." It wasn't a cry for help by any
yeah,
means. It was really just, Tyler opened that conversation up, you know, the right way, and I just unloaded.
just
But
go, do
yeah,
it. So, what else is going on?
with me?
Just that?
Yeah, I mean, what else is going on? I mean, right now, like we're just we do 24, it looks crazy. We have so many cool opportunities. We just started our spec. So the 45 White Oak project, that is incredibly exciting.
When you say just started, what's that mean?
Means there's an excavator like scooping up all
That
the
would be starting.
remnants of the old.
I didn't realize we were there.
We were there. We are there. I'm gonna send you a photo after this, and yeah, we're scooping up the old home, and getting ready to jump into construction. Super fortunate that there's a ton of partners on that, and brands that want to be part of it. Vincent and his team at Of Possible did an amazing job with the design, and you know I got a really good balance of people that are super excited and can't wait to see it built, and then the other side is like, that's crazy. You should just build a normal house for your quote unquote first spec. And I'm like, yeah, it's just not not my style.
Yeah.
So I'll deal with the headaches for neck aches for a few weeks or a few months. But excited about it because it really is what it's something that I've been talking about for 10 years now. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, let's create a product that is our brand and let's build a portfolio around that. So to be able to do that's exciting. I think from a stress level, it's just, end of year, trying to close out the year on a good note, prep for next year, spent too much time focused on things in the business that um, were a waste of time. And in the moment, they might not have felt like a waste of time, but the reality is my time is better served, on the business, and I was spending too much time in the business, so paying for that for a few weeks. But yeah,
What what's the build like the proposed build time of that?
14 months,
It's quick.
so it is
How many
quick.
square feet?
8,000.
Damn.
Yeah. So we are utilizing offsite construction. So foundation will go in typical because it's a ledgy site. So we'll place the foundation on site, and then all the frame will be built at Cape Cod Panel, which you saw.
Yeah.
We went down there with Doug Mullen. So they're going to do the frame. The whole model's already done. And then from there, you know, windows. They're going to be all European windows. The cladding is this really cool Peterson Teagle product, and then a ton of millwork on the inside. So we got to be cooking, you know, and we got to be moving quickly. Um, but ultimately, our goal is to once we start coming out of the market it and hopefully find a buyer for it, and deliver a really kick-ass project. And once we do that, we have another property already acquired that we're gonna start designing that one. So
Are you looking to pre-sell it to be able to make changes or no, it's being built? So are you looking to pre-sell it at all?
we will pre-sell it, but we're not looking to make changes.
Yeah.
So it's it's not a semi-custom. It is you're buying a product.
Yeah.
So like like you're buying a car, right? Like you can change a couple things. You can get a different floor mat. You can, but you're not coming in and changing layout. You're not changing, materials really. Um, you're not changing the millwork. It's also designed in a way where you really can't,
Yeah.
where it's like you would be making massive changes. And, you know, someone was like, "Well, what if they're willing to pay more for it?" It's like I know that's going to be super enticing when that moment comes, but I would like to believe, and I hope that I'm able to feel this way when that time comes, is that there's a buyer that wants what we've designed, and it's our job to find that buyer rather than modify it for the masses.
Yeah.
So I'd rather put the resources into finding that one buyer. I mean, we've spent a lot on the marketing resources already, the renderings. We have a photographer already committed to photographing the project when it's done, who is this international photographer. And Vincent, who's principal at, or the owner of Possible, and him and I chat on a regular basis. Like this is designed to be kind of a portfolio start to what him and I will do in terms of projects and in Massachusetts and elsewhere.
Yeah. I also think pre-selling it is basically not pre-selling it, but making changes to it is dispelling all that you are trying to do with your
Right.
proof of concept
Yep.
anyway,
Yeah.
where you'll never know if you're able to do this.
Right.
It's like that's the whole point of doing this in the first place.
Yeah, and thankfully, I mean, we have a really great partner on the finance side, and we sat down and chatted about it. And he's like, "What if someone comes in and wants to change everything?" And I just said no, and he laughed and he was like, "I love it." He's like,
Yeah.
"This is so cool. Like, you guys have done, the design. It's you know what you want to do. Let's bring the vision to life and sell it." So
Was that difficult to convince the lender or lenders of your model?
yeah, I think I added it up. I think 10 people said no.
How many people
Um,
did you ask?
11.
Sold.
Yeah. I want to say it was something like that. Um, Everyone liked the idea of it, and then we put together the performa and basically outline what we were trying to accomplish, and people were like, hell no,
Just too
like
risky.
too risky. Like you're not hitting the mass market. I'm like, mass meaning like big, like the
Yeah, yeah,
overall
yeah.
market, not Massachusetts. And I'm like, that's not the point here. And they're like, yeah, but that one over here sold for, 7 million. It's like, that's a colonial spec white
Yeah.
box. And it's like you look through the interior and it's exactly what you would expect. All white walls, commodity white oak flooring, some black accents, like
Yeah.
white, yeah, like it's so plain. And which is a totally fine model, but it's not what I want to be known for.
No, but it's guaranteed
It's
also.
guaranteed. Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, we can paint walls. Like, no one's walking in our house and being like, oh, we could paint this wall. It's like, no, you're not gonna want to. You're gonna walk in the house and be like, holy shit,
Yeah.
like this is cool. Like all the finishes, all everything's thought of cohesively. But I mean, the goal is to be able to do like one of these and obviously sell it as a business, for profit, but at the same time use it as something where someone's like, "Hey, I love that. I don't want to buy it, but I want to build something like it."
Yeah.
So for every one that we build for sale, hopefully we're producing two customs from it. And that would be our model, is that now we're just building these super unique, really really intentionally designed homes based on that.
What was the motivation for the seller to or this lender to go ahead with this? Did you ever ask
I
him
did.
or her?
I did. They said they wanted to be a little bit more creative with their investing and do something a little bit different. They've done a lot of traditional projects and they've done very well, but this was an opportunity to touch a market that was completely new.
Is the reward higher for them?
No, if anything, I mean, I don't want to say it would be less, but like there's a potential of that it could be less because
Yeah.
we're playing in this world of, outside what comps,
Yeah.
but it's not a comparable product to what is they're comping. 8,000 square foot house is different than another 8,000 square foot house.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious if it's like higher risk, higher reward, but I was under the assumption after speaking with you and kind of knowing the ins and outs of the product and project that it wasn't necessarily the case. So in looking at that from the outside in, it's like I understand why 10 people said no, but why did one person say yes when they could
Mhm.
put their money elsewhere and be guaranteed? Um, I could see the one person saying yes if it's like, yeah, this is risky, but the reward is this much more.
Well, the thing is the reward has the potential of being that much more.
Yeah,
Where it's like, if this, when it works, I'm not gonna say if it works, it will work. When this works, that reward will be healthy, but then it's the ability to then compound on that and do it again and again
yeah.
and again. And I think that, I mean, this is what I kind of want to talk about today is like, I think this is where the quality of workmanship really comes into play. And I go to the open houses and I go check out some of the other products that end up on the market. Meg and I went to an open house a couple months ago. House was listed for like $7 million right down the street. I'm like, that's a great
And
uh,
down the street from this or down the street
down
from
the
you in Boston?
sorry, down the street from our 45 White Oak. And I'm like, this is great. Like, this is a good understanding of what's on the market for that price point, and let's see how it does. Fast forward, it actually they end up selling it for way under. And but Meg and I went and we walked it and we left there and I'm like, "What do you think?" She goes, "It's super uninspiring. It's
Yeah,
like big and like the outside's super nice and or the outside's nice and but it's just uninspiring and frankly I feel like it was a ton of wasted space."
yeah.
Like, you had these weird giant bedrooms with this weird hallway, and I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "That is probably the subconscious of most of the people going in there." And they don't know why they don't fall in love with it, but they're like, "Okay, it's big, it's that many square feet, but it's uninspiring." Where, you know, we're looking at it as like, "All right, how do you walk in the front door of, this house and immediately be like, 'Holy crap.'" And just like have these constant moments of experience where it's like we have this crazy skylight when you walk in that you won't see until you get into the house, and it's 8 foot by 8 foot.
Yeah.
It's massive, and then you come around the corner and you're going to see this kitchen kind of experience through this hallway that frames a cedar tree in the backyard. It's just like all of these moments that when you're walking through the house, you're never traveling in a way that is uninspiring. You always have this like reference point to kind of pull yourself through the home. And I know that sounds super it can sound far-fetched for a lot of people, but I do think that lends itself to being like that's the brand, right? That's why people pay a premium for a brand or because of the story behind it.
So you're the site that this is being built on, you're limited as the house placement, right?
Yeah. So the lot is super challenging. It's 75% covered in wetlands. So we had to go through wetlands approval. Like it was not a grueling process, a long process. Um, and there's only one part of the lot in the on the back left corner that actually allowed us to build without like any wetlands. Um, so long story short, what we're proposing to build compared to what is there now is actually an improvement to the site. We're impacting less of what is in the wetland zone and it's a bigger house. But we're not maximizing the lot because a lot of developers will go in and say, "What's the maximum size house I
Yeah.
can build on this lot?" And they'll go for that. We're just looking at like what makes sense for the lot. Let's not try to let's play off the wetlands. Like you have this cool creek. Everyone's like, "I don't want a creek on my property." I'm like, "What?" I'm like,
Yeah,
"We
why
we
not?
we situated the whole house to have this outdoor living room against the creek. We pushed it as close as we were allowed to push it So when you're sitting out there in the spring, you're going to hear the rushing water.
Mhm.
In suburbs, which, it's not a huge site. It's like a third of an acre, I think. But when you're sitting on that, like, you actually won't even see your neighbors.
That's insane to get that size of a house on a 1/3 of an acre lot as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's over 3 floors, so
Yeah, but
it's,
still.
it might be I guess it depends on how you count the square footage, but it's in between 7 and 8,000. Um, yeah, and there's, like, certain parameters that we had to hit, like, everyone's like, "You can't do a two-car garage, you need 3." It's like no one even cares, like, no one even looks at it. So, while I might disagree with that, it's like, fine. So we'll figure that out. We had to get a 3-car garage in there. Which is that is right now the biggest unknown because there is ledge on the property and the
Yeah,
garage is underground. So really hoping that we
it could be an expensive garage.
yeah, but necessary. So,
Yeah. Um, so as far as house placement and design, like, if you're locked in,
mm.
how much how much more freedom would you have had to home design if you weren't locked in to where you were with the house placement, or do you think that those constraints bred more ingenuity?
um so I'll reference the other lot we have, which is a big flat lot, 3.5 acres, which is arguably a better lot for a house because we can kind of build what we want sprawling. Um, I think that this lot really pushed us to be super creative. Um, and I think early on we were ignoring the fact that we were going to hit ledge. So we had a different intent with the basement and things like that. And now we've shifted that a little bit to shrink the basement and whatnot. Um, but I think that, being that we're building the house in essentially the same spot as it was, if there was no house there to begin with, and knowing that the lot has to be considered buildable by the city, I think we would have had a much more challenging time getting what we designed.
Yeah.
I think that they would have really pushed the house to be really small, really far away from the wetlands. Um, but being that there was a house there already and we're using that same footprint, it worked. It really worked to our advantage.
Yeah, even with our house, we sat down a few weeks ago with my buddy Tom who works he's a um landscape designer, and we're looking at the lot, and it's a rectangular lot and there's wetlands. The front is dry. Obviously, you're bound by property lines, setback from the street, and then the back is all wetlands. So it's like 2 acres of cleared area that you could build a house, minus your setbacks from the road and property lines. And then your limit of disturbance is set by the wetlands in the back, but it's essentially 2 acres up front that you can build, 4 acres in the back that's just woods. And it's you have so much creative space to be able to do what you want with that 2 acres, that at the same time it's like it almost doesn't force us to be creative enough,
Yeah.
because it's like you have this big open lot and it's like, well, do we want a southern facing home where the woods are in the back, and like southern facing, if you're living out of the back of the house, now points you at somebody else's house? And it's like, if we were bound by more constraints, I think that we might try and do something more outside of the box than just like, hey, we want privacy, we want to feel as though we're in the woods, and we want to create as much of a buffer as possible, and that's dictating what we're thinking as far as house layout. And it's less ingenuity
Hmm.
and less creative or like artistic expression. Is just like, this kind of makes the most amount of sense here.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when you look at like track homes or just like where they go in and they clear everything and just build a bunch of houses.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that when there's a lot of constraint, it really pushes you to be creative. And I think that's what I mean by these experiences and how you experience the lot, right? Like there's certain things, certain window placement, right? On a traditional home, your windows are typically architecturally laid out, so everything is, kind of mirror image of each other,
Yep.
right? So everything's balanced. Where In our design, it's more modern, and windows aren't designed. They're not placed in places that need to balance each other. They're placed in places that allow you to experience the lot in certain ways. Um, and I like that where it's, we're doing the same thing for actually a couple projects, but we're we have another client that bought a 11-acre lot, um, and they want to build this home basically on the highest point in the lot, which is a quarter mile off the road, and it's designed to be there so they can experience the water off the back side of it. And we walked that lot a half a dozen times, like all through the 11 acres. And side note, I got lost every time I went in the in the woods. I had my GPS on so I could figure out how to get back to my truck. But we're like everything is designed around that lot. And there's these like giant boulders, and those are part of the experience where it's like, hey, let's have a window here that frames the view of this boulder. So when you're in this room and you look out the window, it's like you're seeing the boulder. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think that I do think that that's like my preference in terms of architecture and design is that you're looking at what is around you and
Yeah.
how do you experience it. I think, if you have a bunch of trees around, like a simple example would be like, well, why don't you position a window that when you're walking down the hallway, that window's dead center of that. I mean, that tree is dead center of that window. And it's like in the moment, when you're laying out the house, maybe that doesn't really like matter or make sense. But then when the house is done and every time you walk down that hallway and this tree is perfectly centered in the window, it might change the way that that feels walking down that hallway.
Yeah. But the sites that are more challenging, I even think of it simply like a more simple example would be bathroom design, right? Where it's like if you have a 15 by 10 space to do a bathroom, it's almost like, yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want, but it
Yeah.
usually it doesn't turn out to be anything that's super unique because you have
Mhm.
all this space to work with. But then it's like, all right, you have this funky shape, or you could borrow from this room and create this like really unique design. And
Mhm.
you spend so much time thinking about it and laying things out in a manner that financially makes sense, also from a design perspective. And then you get creative. And I think that does a lot of time breed a better product or a better project than
Mhm.
just having like a huge canvas to be able to work with.
Dude, I agree, and that bathroom example is a great one because we had a client reach out years ago. They were thinking about buying this place in Beacon Hill. Beacon Hills are like extremely expensive in the city, oftentimes very small townhomes. And we're walking through, and I'm on the level where it's kind of like a living room library type area. And he was like, I really want to add a bathroom on this floor, but there's nowhere to do it. And I'm over near the stairs, and there's this tiny little closet under the stairs.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what if we snuck something in here? And he goes, how would you do that? I'm like, what if I told you I could get you a tub? I mean, a shower, toilet, and a sink in here.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you talking about? And I pulled up this picture that, someone took this 3 by 3 room. I don't even know if it was 3 by 3. It might have been like 2 foot by 3 foot. But they had a toilet that had a sink that was on top of the tank in the back of it. And the whole room was a shower.
Yeah.
And they just detailed, like, they got super creative with the space. Like, obviously it's not ideal, but the point, like, my point in that was like there's ways to accomplish it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and I would, even that one, it's like, get rid of the tank, put the tank on the wall, now you just have a basin, and then you get a small tiny sink above it. Like, you can make this work if you truly need a bathroom here without taking the easy approach of framing up a 5 foot by 3 foot wall to tuck in a powder room that's going to look awkward as hell every time you come around that corner.
Yeah. It's like a coat closet with
Yeah.
the toilet and sink in there.
Yeah, and someone's reading a book and while someone's using
Oh,
the
sorry, here's
bathroom.
my coat.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, we're going through that part in our project now and really just looking at site layout while the wetland submittals are in with the EPA, taking our time on it. Obviously, interest rates super high right now, and it's like, whatever. Take it step by step, day by day, see what happens when it happens. But digging into site layout it's cool to get your site layout and then walk the site and flag stuff, and there's minor changes that you can make, and you can start to see and feel what that site looks like. And the whole process can be overwhelming when you think start to finish, what the like how is this going to work, what's the first step. But as with any other job, you just start taking one step at a time and then refining and making changes, and maybe you go a couple steps backwards. But it's like at the point where we are now, and we have a basic site layout of what we're thinking, and then to get on to the site and be able to make changes and stake the corners of the buildings that we're thinking, and what'll make more sense and what it looks like in real life, and then being able to make those changes where it's like, well, let's shift this way, and then we're able to preserve this tree line, not have to get rid of this because of septic. And it's actually a pretty natural, self-explanatory process when you really get into it. It's just like anything else that I found when you're looking big picture, trying to make sense of an entire home build. Cumulatively, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around that. But when you break apart these independent pieces
Mm.
and then start analyzing them and making changes to those independent pieces, they start falling together in like a way that makes a lot of sense. And it's not so overwhelming. And it's just like, yeah, that's where this should go because it blocks this view. It allows for this. The sun will come up over here. We'll be able to park over here and hide this over here. And it's like, to think about that 2 months ago would be completely overwhelming with everything else that's going on.
Such a great point, like biting off a little piece at a time. We that's something I have a hard time. I have a hard time seeing the big picture because I try to see the big picture first.
Yeah.
And for every project where we have another project up in the Lakes region in New Hampshire that we're in design with the architect right now. And, I walk the site. It's a beautiful site, steep hillside site, very complicated. And I'm walking it. I'm like, yeah, you can put a house here. Like, why not? And then it's like, how am I going to get down? It's like, you can put a driveway here. Why not? Like, we'll just grade this a little bit and do that and do this. And then we go back and we come back a month later and the landscape architect and the architect put together this plan. I'm like, what is that? Like, those are the retaining walls. It's like, that's $2.5 million worth of retaining walls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? They're like, do you know how steep the site is? And I'm like, I think so. And they had mapped it out, they had it all surveyed, and he was like, yeah, let me show you up on the TV. And they did a cut through of the hill and they put a level line on it and they were
Yeah.
like, that's the hill. And I'm like, whoa, that's like 45 degrees. They're like, yeah, like this isn't a flat site, Nick. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I know, but I just, I was like, I couldn't envision that quite yet. And, obviously I knew it wasn't going to be a flat site, but just to protect my ego there for a minute. But then we get to the house design and I'm like, yeah, I understand that there will be a house here, but I'm not really sure how that how that plays with everything else. And then they go through that first round where they like model the design and kind of put massing on site. And the moment that happened, it was like my brain turned on. I was like, "Got
Yeah.
it. Now, what if we do this? What if we refine that? What if?" And that's where I've come to realize that I'm way better at those at the smaller details. Give me the massing, give me the big picture, and then I can help refine it.
Yeah. And I think that that's the way that it has to be. And it's too much to try and digest all of that and spit out a design without really like there's certain things that you're going to be bound to on a project or a build that are just matter of fact. Once you start putting those constraints into place and building around them, a lot of times like there's certain tweaks that you can do to design, but there's things that are going, the story will write itself. um and it's going to make a lot more sense as it progresses naturally than trying to like shoehorn something into place that's not in place. And I mean, that's an issue I have with design in general, where it's like they are designing independent of what's there,
Mhm,
whether it's a lot, whether it's a kitchen, a bathroom, a first floor, an addition.
mhm.
They're not taking into consideration what's there, what you're working for. They're creating this design with no regard to that. And it's like all of that should be taken into account.
And I
Bef-
think that, like, what happens is they're like, "Oh, they'll figure it out on site. They'll
yeah, just
adapt to it on
shoehorn it
site."
in, make it work.
And
And
yeah, I mean, you're dealing with this firsthand.
yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with a lot of frustrations firsthand. Um, but yeah, I think that one of them is creating a design, and then just making it fit into a space. And for me, I struggle with that. I think that you should really have an account for the space and how to utilize that properly rather than building something on paper and then making it work, where it's like you have a unique space, you have unique head heights, you have all of these
Mhm,
like confines and constraints within this project. And I think that it does present itself for unique opportunities, but you're looking at a floor plan, and you're making this design, and you're squeezing it to fit into here, where it's like, well, I know I have to get a fridge in here, and this over here kind of is the height that we need, so we're going to put it in here, jam it up against this, and then like the measurements aren't right. And I think that there's gotta be a better way to design, and
mhm.
more respect for that. It's the equivalent, like you said, of somebody designing a house or like a spec to sell and then finding the piece of property for it after the fact, where it's like, you can't do that. Like, you
Yeah,
can't just drop any house design on any piece of property unless you have 300 acres and it's like, well, find a spot for this to fit. I think that you should take into account everything that's around there, all of your surroundings, how the house flows, what structural elements are within the space to really make it seem as if it fits there. And like it was fit and built and customized and tailored to fit that space.
yeah.
Um, Especially with home homes, like even what I'm dealing with kitchen design right now. I don't understand how you measure a kitchen without knowing how out of level the floor is, how out of level the ceiling is, how out of plumb the walls are. Are we going to flatten things? Are we going to straighten them? Are we taking worst case? Are we going to have parallel lines? Are we going to scribe everything? How are you designing a custom kitchen package without accounting for any of that shit? It's
You
like
know,
that's not
Tyler
custom at that point.
Tyler, I'm just gonna do that, and you're gonna figure it out because that's what everyone else does.
Yeah.
And that's that's one of the issues with let's just talk about, like, your scope of work, right? Where it's like you who's gonna go in there and flatten the floor, plumb the walls, make sure the ceiling's flat, and prep and make sure that that space is prepped and ready for a custom kitchen. And then you're gonna get the other guy that's gonna come in and do the quote unquote same job, but he's not going to take the time to flatten anything. He's going to put the kitchen in. He's going to shim up one side 2 inches, and he's going to scribe the baseboard maybe, and he's going to cover stuff up with cover trim and corners and fillers. This and like, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's the quote unquote same thing.
Yeah.
And the client, for a huge population, would doesn't understand the difference. They may if they were side by side, they would obviously like see the differences, but if at the end of the day, you know, one client might look at your work and the other guy's work and just say, "Yeah, I got my kitchen." And that's it. And that's all I care. Like, I paid to have the kitchen done. I didn't realize that, there's different tiers of it. And that's the frustrating thing where, I think especially for someone like yourself that has so much regard for how stuff goes together and what it looks like, is that then you start pushing back on the designer as to, hey, what was the intent here? The floor is out of level. Like, I need to flatten the floor, but now I don't have room for my backsplash, or whatever the case is. It's like, and I think I share the frustration where it's like, well, they went into that assuming that they didn't have to worry about it because you would deal with it.
But that see, the thing for me, obviously, like, at the end of the day, my name's on the job, whether I designed it or I didn't design it. When somebody comes and walks through the door and it looks like a shoddy install, that's on me. That's
Yeah.
not going to be on like, I own that cabinet install. So, right, the first thing I do on a kitchen after demo is I go around, I assess what the site looks like, where are the high points on the floor, where are the low points, where I have cabinets, what does it look like at the ceiling? Is the ceiling out of level where there's cabinets on the ceiling that's not going to match the other side? I'm gauging all of this stuff and then going to the designers and being like, hey, this is where we stand. This
Mhm.
is what the design calls for. We have issues here, here, and here. What are we going to do about this? Here are our options. What are we going to do about this? And to present these findings, first off, I don't know how these findings weren't already known when you're measuring a kitchen. Like, from early on, I just bring a laser with me and I measure how far out the floor is. Do I want to add to to the toe kicks of the cabinets if they're that far out so I don't have scribes and moldings everywhere? What does the ceiling look like? Should we 100% reframe the ceiling or at least give us some wiggle room to flatten the ceiling where cabinets are going to the ceiling? Um all of these constraints and all of these things that define a kitchen install, I just can't imagine coming in and measuring it and being like, "Hey, the floor is 96 inches over here and it's 96 inches over here, or it's 96 and a quarter, it's within a quarter inch." No, but you put a level on there and it's actually an inch and a half out. Like,
Mhm.
you're setting your cabinets level. That's all stuff when you're designing a custom kitchen that needs to be accounted for. So when I come in and I demo the space and I see all these issues and I say, well, what are we going to do about this? We're going to put trim on the bottom. Well, like, there's got to be better solutions. Like, the cabinets should have been ordered this way, that way. And I think that I put a little bit too much trust in experience and that it would be made right and that these issues were well defined and presented at an early enough stage to remediate them. And I'm getting to the end of the job and I'm having to execute details that were never solved. And the assumption was just like, oh yeah, just trim it out or put it together. The customer will never know it's going to look good enough. And quite frankly, I'm mortified because it's like, this is my work. When somebody comes and walks through and they're like, well, why is that trim on the side of the cabinet intersecting with this trim and then hiding the edge of that trim? Like, why is the end panel the wrong size? And then you have trims covering the floor and then up the back. And it's shit that you would know when you laid the cabinets out that needed to be addressed.
Mhm.
And the fact that it was presented that and it was never fixed or there was never a resolution in place, and like you said, it's, oh, well, all the other contractors just like use scribe molding and they take care of it and it's never been an issue. And I'm like, but it's always been an issue. It's just that nobody's ever taken care of it beforehand. It's always been an issue and it's always been, there's been no resolution for it. It's always been whatever's easiest or costs the least amount of money, but there's never been a fix and there's never been a resolution. And to me, that's where the issue is because I want to do it right regardless. I want to protect my reputation. I want to deliver to my customers the best product possible, and I don't want my name on something that looks like dog shit.
Mhm.
And that's like, it's so frustrating to me, um and the lack of accountability and like the execution of design from one person's standpoint to another can be so far off. Like, what I feel compromises the integrity of design is something completely different than people that I'm working with. And I don't know where that disparity is. Is that me just having too high of a standard? Is it inexperience on designers' behalf? Is it a financial capacity that somebody can't hold? And that I'm just learning, especially in this project, that this is why I'm hands on and this is why I control so many aspects of my project. And this is why I own cabinet design and shop drawings and all of that stuff, and I let my guard down on this project, and I let it was brought to me. It wasn't my project, it was brought to me by a designer. So I never handled any of that, and I should have walked away at that point because that's just not how I work. Um, and I'm learning that I went against everything that I have stood for and everything that I put into place over the past 10 years by putting faith in somebody else to be able to execute properly, and at this point now it's my problem to fix.
Yeah, I think the key in what you're saying is like the lack of accountability, and the unfortunate side of your situation is that the accountability was never needed because there was this unwritten rule that the contractor would figure it out, and the result would never net what the intent was. Like
Yeah.
they would always end up with a product that was subpar, and they were fine with it. And I mean, if we really break this down, right? Like, if we think about why you're in the position that you're in and what you could have done to prevent it, it would likely be the fact that there was just not an alignment with expectation set, right? Like you're this designer, you said you let your guard down, where there was really never a baseline as to like what the execution level was going to be, and there was too much divide between who was doing what and not enough of a collaborative understanding.
Yeah,
So
I
you
think that the standards were different. Like, my
yeah,
standards are different than their
right,
standards.
which was a lack of alignment, right? So at the in the grand scheme of things, it's like, yeah, this is, this sucks. And what's a difficult balance is like you don't want to put your name on it because it's going to look like shit, but you got to finish the job.
And I also, like, I I'm trying to tiptoe between throwing somebody under the bus and protecting myself with the customer, because at the end of the day, like, I own this install, and when there's shortcomings that I'm trying to fix, and the customers are paying me hourly to try and fix these shortcomings, it's a weird situation that I'm put into where I wanna be like, "Hey, I don't want my hands on this anymore. Like, somebody else come take care of this, and I won't own it. I won't warranty it. It's not my," and that's not, I can't do that because it's my job and I agreed to take this. But even, like, working with somebody from the company yesterday who came out to try and fix these issues, and it's like, we were able to adjust the doors to all close properly, and you look at the outside of the doors, and they have one hinge half an inch off the front of the face frame and the other one like an eighth inch in, and I'm like, I could have done that too. My issue, like, doors, overlay doors that are next to each other that don't flush out because the doors are so warped, and one's pulled a quarter inch out and the other one's a half inch out, so if you run your hand along the doors, they're like not flat where the hinges are. And they're like, "Yeah, there was enough adjustability in there." And I was like, "There's enough adjustability in there for the doors to close flat, but none of them are flat in relation to each other." And like, to me, that's a big difference. Like, when you look at the side of a cabinet and there's a half inch gap at the door at the top and then a quarter inch at the bottom just to make the doors flush out where they meet with each other, like, I wouldn't walk away from a job like that and be like, "Looks good. The doors are closing flush in the middle, but when you look at the outsides, they're completely racked from one another. There was enough adjustability there. We thought we'd have to get new doors." And
You
I'm
know
like,
whose job that makes difficult? The photographers.
"Yeah,
'Cause then you gotta bury these, like, it's like you gotta take that photo straight on.
dude."
If you're like, I every time they photograph an inset kitchen of ours, I'm like, "God damn it, Ken, like, we have to go there the day of because that reveal." I mean, it's fine. No one ever noticed, but it's like, it just I if it was adjusted like a quarter turn, it would've
Yeah.
been a that reveal would've been perfect. And
And
it's
then this just isn't close. Like, it's not
no, I know.
close. It's not within my standard. And, like, I could have done that, yeah, but when the customer comes in, like, so how do I protect myself there when the customer comes in? Do I just not say anything and then be
Look,
like, "Yeah, this is fine, this is a standard," or do I say, "Hey, let's walk through. I want to express my concerns, and you can take that up with the person who sold you the cabinets. Do I say nothing? Do I put money in my pocket and walk away from it? I'm in a weird position. Like, I had the conversation with somebody from the company yesterday, and it's like, my the I'm pretty sure it was I'm going to paraphrase this, but it was something along the lines of, when you're in a hole, you just keep digging your way out. And then it's like, um the goal here is to have a product that, like, the customer's okay with and they don't notice, and it'll look pretty good. And I'm like, this is so fucking far from what I stand for, that,
Right.
like, I got completely duped getting into bed with you,
Mhm.
because I'm pretty sure that I told you I'm not just like, this is gonna look pretty good. Like,
Right.
that's not my style. I don't feel like I'm providing value for the customers, and I don't know where I missed the mark there. I think that, when I was interviewed for this project, and uh it was, you have to be this type of contractor and it has to be this way, and this is where we work, and I've installed 500 kitchens. That's the expectation, the level of expectation was set for me. It's like, yeah, I got to step up. It's got to be my A work. And now this person who interviewed me showed up and, like, to fix cabinets, and they're working out of a minivan with tools thrown all across the seat. And I'm like, the conversation at the beginning of this job and what I'm actually finding out this company looks like are two different things.
Mhm.
Like, and
It's
I got duped.
it's tough, right? Like, one of the things I keep thinking about is the fact that all the money they're spending, they could like, I think this is what you're struggling with too, is like all the money they're spending on this, they ultimately could have gotten a better product.
Yep.
And it's this.
The customer's paying for it.
Yeah,
They're paying
and
me to fix it.
right, and the issue, and I dealt with this a couple years ago where we went in, we bid a job, we told them it was 8 months to do it, and then another contractor bid it and they told them 6, and they went with the 6-month contractor, it took them 11. But in the beginning, like, that's what mattered to them. By the time the job was done, they're like, "Yeah, no, it wasn't a big deal." But the sole reason that they went with the other contractor was because he said he could do it in 2 months faster than us,
Mhm.
and he didn't. But it's like we have this, like, psychology where it's like we'd rather be lied to in the beginning and be told what we wanna hear, and then deal with the repercussions later on.
Yeah. It
And
it
it and it's the same thing here where it's like, these guys are coming in, "Yeah, yep, we'll do everything, you're gonna get a custom kitchen, blah, blah, blah," and then at the end of the day, like, they're gonna get the custom kitchen, and it's not gonna be a 10 out of 10 product, might not even be a 7 out of 10 product, but they got a new kitchen, and yeah, it is what it is, no big deal.
Yeah, like, it looks good. I guess just what was presented to me in the beginning stages, um, and me vetting who I'm working with, not the customers, but, like, from a design standpoint, and the conversations that were had was that this was going to be a really tight ship and top tier products, a really well executed design, and I'm into this kitchen and this install, and it should be, the all these issues that I'm running into, I disclosed 3 months ago when the kitchen got delivered, or what, no, 4 months ago when I started the project and really dug into cabinet design. And it's like it's the first kitchen that they ever designed. Like, the issues that I'm running into are step 1 of kitchen design, and it's really hard to have my name on that type of stuff. And again, like, from an integrity of design standpoint, it's more of like a decorator versus designer type of thing, where it's like, to me, not as much emphasis should be put on furnishings and color palette and textures and textiles as getting the fucking kitchen design right. Like,
Mhm.
all of that stuff can be decided
Or at
later.
least until, like, get
Yeah,
the
like,
kitchen design right
samples can be
first, yeah.
brought in. All of that stuff can, like, that's not the important stuff when somebody's investing in a renovation like this. Like, colors are gonna get changed in a few years. You can repaint your walls, you can change out window treatments, but when you're spending $150,000, $200,000 on a kitchen, like, those materials are staying there. Those cabinets are staying there. You just put
Mm,
$20,000, $25,000 worth of countertops on cabinets, and the cabinets are fucked. Now, what option does the customer have? And no matter what you do, it's going to be a lesser product at this point. Um, and that's really, really frustrating to me, where it's like you said, pay the money up front. Like, get them a better product from the get go. Don't spend as much time and headache on the back end. Spend more time on the layout and the design and the existing space than worrying about like all the back end shit and the design presentation, and we're gonna source these brass shelves that are custom made with glass that goes. It's like none of that shit matters when you have a panel on the side of the cabinet with unfinished
Right.
edges, and then you're like run scribe molding along the floor and then up the back, and the unfinished painted edge will only have to hand paint 4 inches of it because it'll run into the panel on the end of the end panel. And I'm like, why isn't the end panel the whole height of the cabinet? Like, why are we have an end panel that's 4 inches? Well, it's to match the door height. No, it's like framed cat. It just none of it makes sense to me, and I'm very frustrated, and I've been frustrated, and I guess the biggest frustration is for me trying to navigate what like my standard, what I can stand behind, protecting myself from the customer, protecting the customer while also trying to maintain some relationship or like cordialness with the designers, because
Yeah.
I want to be like the customers like, what do you think of the cabinet design? They told us it was like, or the cabinet quality, they told us it was like top tier. And I'm like, "It's not even close." Like, but what do I say to the customer? I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, these dog shit." Like,
I think you have. I mean, it's not even to protect it yourself. It's just like, hey, I want to voice my concerns. Listen, you hired me as the professional. I'm the contractor. I'm working with these other trades that are, a little outside of my control, but it's my duty as like based on my experience to at least voice my concerns.
yeah,
And my concerns are the fact that I know that you asked for a custom kitchen and and at a high quality, and I'm producing as high of a quality as I can within the limitations that I have. And the biggest limitation is the quality of cabinetry that showed up. And I can certainly walk you through specifics, but the overarching thing is that these cabinets are are not of a high quality, and I'm faced with all of these like band-aids to make it look good. At the end of the day, it'll be a functioning kitchen. It will be whatever color it's supposed to be, this white kitchen that you asked for, but I know that it won't be to the standard that I hoped it was because I didn't have the control of that cabinetry.
yeah,
And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, because ultimately, if you're not happy with the product, I want to know that. If you are happy with the product, then I can complete the project. I can complete my scope. I will continue to do the best of my best work I can. But I don't want you to feel like you're in a position where you can't come to me and say, "Hey, Tyler, I'm unhappy." Because what will happen is that I will finish the job and I will leave here and you will be unhappy and it will fall on me.
yeah.
And it
I
will
just
fall on me because I didn't mention the concern, and you've decided to bottle that in and wait for me to wrap up the job to then tell your neighbor that Tyler doesn't do a good job.
I guess I just don't understand even like what the recourse is at this point, you know? Like,
Well, I think for the client, I think if the recourse said, "Listen, Tyler, I appreciate you coming to me. I am very unhappy, and I haven't really understood how I'm going to address it. What would you suggest?" It's like, well, why don't we get a meeting with the cabinet maker and just reset the expectation? Like, listen, the client's not happy. The client asked for a custom kitchen, and by definition, and you could probably pull up some sort of AWI standard, like this is not a custom kitchen. It's filled with fillers. It's filled with product that wasn't meant to be used in the way it's used. There's things that are being done here that are against the AWI standards, and the client has paid a lot of money. And at this point, I've accumulated whatever 147 hours of trying to make this kitchen look better than it's possible.
yeah,
And, before this goes any further, we have to hit pause and get on the same page. So, listen, ABC Cabinetry, if you're not willing to work here, then we're going to we're going to have to come up with some sort of mutual agreement. Alternatively, obviously, I don't want to say the legal like sue them, but that's the client's decision. But ultimately, like if you had to and you just remove them from the equation, I would assume that there's probably something you could go about in that kitchen to address it to get it to a B plus.
Yeah, I think that the issue is, in my opinion, after speaking with multiple sub trades, meeting, the cabinet manufacturer on site, um, I truly believe that what was sold to the customer is something than different than what's being executed. I don't think that they were presented with options of here's level A, here's level B,
Hmm.
here's the price difference. I think that this was sold as, hey, here's our budget, and there was no discussion of given options. And I also think that essentially the designer went to a cabinet manufacturer who does not make custom cabinets. So
Right.
they had a design that they wanted to execute. And rather than reduce scope or reduce the level of detail in the kitchen, they just went to somebody who can make it for less money, which, in my opinion, is not the right move unless you properly disclose that to the contractor you're working with, the homeowners. You can't go to a cabinet company that doesn't make custom cabinets and then ask them to make custom cabinets.
Right.
Um, that's an issue. There's never You're never going to get the product that you need because that's not their bread and butter. That's not where they operate. That's not what they do. And I think that that's what happened here. And a lot of the buck has been passed to the cabinet company. And I think that there wasn't enough money put towards these kitchen cabinets, um, to get the design that they wanted. And I think that the experience should have told them that, and that they should never have offered this. And I also think that the whoever designed the kitchen didn't have enough kitchen design experience to work with a lesser end cabinet and get them built in a way to make them fit the space, that it doesn't appear as if they're like a stock cabinet.
Mm.
Um, I think that there's ways to work with companies like that where it's like, yeah, we can use this, and this to hide this and make it look this way. And you have to get creative in your thinking. But I don't think there's enough experience there to do that. It was basically just like, make everything the same size. Nothing's going to be oversized. Nothing, here's the opening that we have. This is the size cabinet. No fillers, no double, like even scribes on the end where it's like, no double fillers, whatever. If you go to a custom cabinet company and you're making overlay cabinets, their standard, when you have a filler against the wall, is going to have a filler that flushes out with the frame of the cabinet or the door of the cabinet, not have like just a panel that's 3/4, 7/8 of an inch back from the door where you just have this like weird void against the wall. And like you can order that from a cabinet company that's not custom, but you have to like articulate that to
Right.
them. And none of that was done. So to me, it just looks like a box store cabinet install that the clients paid a lot of money for, and I'm looking to put a bunch of band-aid fixes on. And
Yeah.
there's just a lot of lessons that I learned here when I relinquished control.
Mhm.
Um, like the conversation we had with Buildertrend, you think that you're going, and I didn't hire them, but you think that you're going to be able to just hand this stuff over and it's going to run itself. And I'm learning that it's not that way. Like even if
Yeah.
somebody else has control of the job, that you need to own that 100%. Because if not, it's just like the money's been made, whatever you have to do to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating and it's this balance, right? Where it's like, well, I'm not being paid to manage that. They're working with the designer directly. But I think, especially on the builder and the contractor side, the reality is, and you said it a couple minutes ago, is that at the end of the day, it's going to be your name on it.
Hmm.
And that's the truth of the matter. And for you to step aside and let, Mr. Minivan come in and make it look like shit, or do a bullshit job fixing things, you know, no one's going to remember that dude.
Yeah.
It's gonna be yeah, TRG, like, you see him on Instagram and he looks one way, but this is what he did at my house.
Yep.
Like, you sent me a picture of the filler, I think underneath the apron sink that he cut with
Yeah.
a multi-tool and
Yeah.
then touched up with a paint pen or something,
Yeah.
or a sharp
Nail polish
Sharpie.
container with some stain in it.
So it's like, that's you. That
It's
wasn't
me 100%. And, like,
yeah.
I took video of him cutting that
It
cabinet
does
with that.
dude, you could post that on Instagram and say, "This was not me,"
Yeah.
and it will be, "Yes, it was."
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And that's we could sit here and try to argue, like, how we work around that or try to figure out a way to protect ourselves or put something in our contract to protect, like, all of that's fine, but the reality is like, the summary of it is that TRG Home Concepts did the renovation, and that's it. Who
Mhm.
renovated your house? Oh, Tyler did.
And
And
that's
that's
the
it,
issue I
like,
have.
and that's where it's, the unfortunate side of, like, you have to just own the entire thing. And I think, in my opinion, owning it is having the conversation with the client and, and approach it in a way that lets them communicate that whether or not they have an issue with it.
Do you know what I realized that, like, I fucked up? You ever seen those memes, like, "And in that moment, he realized he
Yeah,
fucked up." Um,
they're so good.
when I complained about not having shop drawings for the hood that I had to build, and when I asked them, like, "What do you want to detail the bottom of this hood?" I remember months ago reaching out to him and be like, "How are you detailing the bottom of your tiled hood that you don't have wood under there? It's
Mhm,
serviceable." And, like, I feel like I've seen you do that. Not that I wouldn't still do that myself, but, like, I'm reaching out to figure this out because I asked the designers and they sent me some pictures that were horrific.
mhm,
And so I'm like, I just won't do that. Like, I
mhm.
won't do that. We don't think that you should put any trim, or, like, we don't, no, not solid surface. Let's just put plywood and paint it. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I saw pictures of other hoods that were installed. So when I was meeting with their cabinet guy, in the minivan, he was like, "I don't get what you need a shop drawing for. It's just a box." And, like, it's all sized to the tile. It's all sized width-wise and height-wise to have half and whole tiles. On the bottom, there's, like, no plywood, painted plywood showing. It's serviceable. It can be removed.
Mhm.
Like, everything was tied in properly with no flex ductwork and anything, and I'm like, "That is anything but just a box."
Mhm.
And I immediately knew, like, this isn't a fit for me. If
Mhm.
that's why every hood that you've done prior to this looks the way that it does, because it was approached with the
Sure.
connotation that it's just a box.
And they're like, at that moment, there's two paths where it's like you kind of buckle down and realize that you're gonna just have to put your creative hat on and do what's best for the project, or allow them to keep kind of going down this path of destruction. And
So, where you're going with that, I was fine with a long time.
hmm.
But when I ran into all of these issues,
Oh, I
the way I'm structured is the customers are paying me hourly.
well, I think this is I'm with you, but I think that this is why you need to have the conversation with the client,
Yeah. Which
because what's happening is you are relinquishing some control because you feel bad for charging your client for fixing all this stuff when the reality is minivan man should be fixing this stuff, and he's not. And even like we
or they
keep
should be paying for it. The
or
customer
paying
already
for it.
bought the cabinets.
Sure,
They shouldn't be paying for this
but it's
also.
this wish, right? Like, we just keep hoping that this guy's gonna wake up one day and be like, "I'm gonna be a decent guy, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna fix my mistakes." He's not. And I do the same thing where it's like you're trying to coach this guy by asking questions where finally he's like, "Fine, I'll do a shop drawing. Fine, I'll come out and make it right." He's not going to. And what is the biggest hurdle right now is that you don't want to go there and fix all this stuff because it's going to cost a fortune. And the reason that that's such a roadblock is because the client doesn't know, and
Yeah.
and you feel that it's unfair that they're paying for it, where it's like, this has to be on the table.
Yeah, because if they're paying me to fix all this shit and they're still getting an inferior product,
It's
they
gonna
ha
be even worse for you.
it's worse for me, but they also coulda just bought nicer cabinets in the first place, and because 'cause
Right.
they're paying for it anyway, and they're getting a shit product. So it's
Mhm.
like, to
And the
me, the designer and the cabinet vendor should be paying for all that shit.
sh Sure, but it all starts with that conversation with the client. Like,
Yeah.
"Hey, listen, like, I have some concerns with what's going on. First and foremost, are you happy with how everything is looking to date?" "Yes." "Okay. I have some concerns. I would really like, to walk you through them because I'm not super happy with how some of this stuff has come together. And what I don't want it to do is I don't want it to turn into an issue or a warranty issue later on.
Yeah.
Walk
That is what I need to do, to be honest.
and if they're like, you know what, I am unhappy, then great. Now, all right, can you walk me through what you're unhappy about? Because I have a list going myself, and I think the best course of action is that we get on the same page and we approach the designer and the cabinet maker in one sitting so we can have a clear action. Let me be very straightforward. I am here to support you. So if you need me to come in and make this kitchen look dynamite, I have the resources to do that. But
Mhm.
what I don't want is to continue to spend your money with you not knowing what you're spending your money on, and just here I am charging you for things that should have been within the cabinet guy's scope.
Yeah, and I think what I was afraid of for a long time is voicing concerns that may not be concerns for the customer, but when it started coming together
Mhm.
and, like, I'd already voiced these concerns to the designer, and when I saw it coming together and it was worse than I imagined in real life, like, sometimes you do stuff and you're like, "It looks fine," and when I did what they wanted me to do that I had already voiced my concerns about, and it looked even worse than I imagined before, that's when I really started having an issue because I'm like, how do I walk away
Yeah.
from this?" And that's where I'm struggling, but yeah, that's definitely, that is what I have to do and what I've started planting the seed to do with the customer, to try and navigate that path. It's just been really tough to do, and like I said, a lot of lessons learned, and things that I just realized, like, I need to do a better job of vetting leads that come across my plates from architects or designers and realize that, like, you start now I see all these things and I start looking at pictures a little bit closer and I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, that was there the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, I saw the big picture and it looked good and it looked legit, and now I'm like looking a little closer. I'm like, yep, it's been the same shit the whole time. I just didn't see it. I had on rose-colored glasses.
Guys, hop on Instagram, drop a comment behind underneath one of the clips that we post on our Instagram page, and let us know about a time and a place that you had colored glass. I can't talk.
Rose-colored
Rose-colored glasses
glasses.
on, and ignored a red flag. Tyler, I'll leave it at this. I recently was at a networking event and chatting up an interior designer, and super excited to work with me. Wanted to do all these projects, and I'm like, great, like this is great. Like I'm gonna follow up. And I remember going home and pulled out our card and pulled up our Instagram, and I think I sent it to you actually. And I was like, hard stop.
Yeah, you did send me that.
Hard stop. Not my cup of tea.
No,
So,
it's a bummer, but at least you know early on.
yeah. Alright, good.
Lessons learned, but thanks
Lessons
everyone
learned.
for listening to me harp and vent, and, I've been doing it to Nick for a while now. I'm trying to see my way through this and make everyone happy, but we're almost there, so we're gonna get through it.
Sure will. See you guys next week.